On yours.
This meeting is being recorded. This meeting is being.
All right, everybody. It's been a couple weeks since we were able to have this learning together, so I'm excited to come back to it. And it is a very, very fascinating Torah portion. We talk about this each year that we kind of cycle through, but it's definitely worth mentioning again that we are now in the profile of the Abramowitz family, right? The patriarchs and the matriarchs, as it were. We are now profiling the third generation.
You hear him?
Right? We had
I'm good.
Abraham,
No, I hear you. Oh.
we had Abraham and Sarah. We had Yitzchak and Rivka. And now I'm going to mute everybody just to deal with background noise. But please, as we do with the JLI, please feel uncomfortable. Feel comfortable to unmute yourself whenever you want to jump in. Avraham, Sarah, Yitzchak, and Rivka, and now we are on to Yaakov, and soon to be Yaakov and Rachel and Leah. Now, to give you a sense, just to in terms of how focused we are on each one of the patriarchs, matriarchs down the line, Avraham gets 3.5 Torah portions. He gets Parshat Lech Lecha, Vayera, and half of 2.5 portions, and half of Chayei Sarah. 2.5 Torah portions. The full Parshat Lech Lecha is all about Avraham. The full Parshat Vayera is all about Avraham, and then half of Parshat Chayei Sarah is about Avraham. His son Yitzchak gets a parsha and a half. Yitzchak and Rivka, half of Chayei Sarah, and then Parshat Toldot. Now we are up to Yaakov, the next generation down. How many Torah portions does Yaakov get? He gets this Vayetzei, this week's Torah portion. Vayetzei, Vayishlach, Vayeshev, Miketz, Vayigash, Vayechi. 6 Torah portions, significantly more than the rest of them. We really double down on the life and times, the happenings of Yaakov. And that actually lines up with the fact that of all the patriarchs, which one do we call ourselves the kin of? Do we call ourselves B'nai Avraham or B'nai Yitzchak? How do we refer to ourselves, the Jewish people? B'nai Yisrael. Who's Yisrael? Yisrael is Yaakov. So of all of the patriarchs, we align ourselves most strongly with Yaakov. Now you can answer why pragmatically, and that is because there are other nations that came after Abraham. We are not exclusively the children of Abraham, right? The Ishmaelites are also children of Abraham, not exclusively the children of Yitzchak. The Edomites are also children of Yitzchak. But we are exclusively the children of Yaakov. But that itself makes the point. That there's something more going on here. Abraham, while being the patriarch, was not the patriarch of the Jewish people only and exclusively. His children were not all, as we say, mitato shlema. His bed was not complete, right? He had Yitzchak, but he also had a branch that went off in a different direction. Yitzchak had Yaakov, but he also had a branch that went off in a different direction. Yaakov, every last one of his children, stayed true to the cause and became a necessary branch of the Jewish people. And why is this? What is it about Yaakov that we give him this much attention, that each one of his children managed to stay true to the cause? We call ourselves by his name, and 6 Torah portions devoted to his story, his specific story. But we say this is not simply just the Torah giving Yaakov more screen time, right? This is not the guild, the Actors Guild or something where where they're fighting for more screen time, where each one's agent is fighting for a better jockeying for more screen time. When the Torah is giving more focus and attention, it's because that life has more eternal lessons to us. Abram lived an exemplary life, right? We know he discovered God at the age of 3, he faced off with Nimrod, etc., and yet all these amazing events are not in the Torah, right? The Torah picks up his story once he's 75 years old. And that's the same, not that the things that happen are not noteworthy. They are very noteworthy and they're very amazing and worth talking about. But the Torah relies, in a sense, on the Medrash and other such works to fill in the blanks. The Torah is a book of eternal lessons to everybody in every place. Any word in Torah, any reporting of an incident, any time the Torah chooses to tell us about it is because in there lies a message and a lesson to you in the year 2022. And so when Yaakov gets 6 Torah portions, because there's so much to say, there's so much to report, it's not that he lived a more eventful life than Avraham necessarily, or than Yitzchak necessarily, but more that what he did or what had occurred to him, the decision he made, are more necessary for us to learn from. We need to be drawing lessons from all of these moments. Interestingly enough, this Torah portion that really begins the focus on Yaakov, Vayetzei Yaakov, begins with Yaakov beginning a journey, right? Vayetzei, and he heads out, right? Very similar, one can say, to Avraham, right? How did Avraham's story begin? With God turning to him and saying, what? Lech lecha, right? Go out. This one is lech, and this one is vayetzei. Lech, which means to kind of go to a place. Vayetzei means to leave from a place, right? That's actually accurate because Avram's on his way to the Holy Land, and Yaakov's on his way out of the Holy Land, right? Yaakov's on his way out. And you can look at that and say, so Yaakov is beginning his journey in the negative, right? Avram began his journey heading in the right direction, to the right place. Yaakov, is a victim of circumstance. His story starts off negatively. He is leaving the land of Canaan, Beersheba, his father's homeland, and he's heading out to a place that is called the Charon Af Shel Makom. It's the place of Haran. It was so corrupt and so evil and terrible that its name depicts that. Haran, meaning from Charon Af, the place that would awake God's anger. It was a place that God was not particularly happy with, right? By the way, I'm getting a sense of it. There's a lot of noise. Is it affecting, or is everybody able to still hear? We're still, we're doing okay. I think it's about to get a little quiet.
Okay. It's just
It's a
we're all
pain in the
muted,
neck,
we can't
whatever.
answer your questions.
No. No. I'm talking about my background noise.
Yeah, your background is a pain in the
It's
neck.
okay.
In terms of everybody else, again, please feel free to. I think it's going to start getting quieter because basically this Beit Chabad is the Chabad house here in Baltimore is now actually housing a yeshiva, a kind of what is called the Mesifta. It's the intermediate between elementary and the Yeshiva Gedola, which would be the college. I call, like I say, kind of a middle school, high school ish, because the years divide differently, while Yeshiva Gedola is kind of high school, college. So this is middle school, high school. So
are you the bus driver today?
I am the bus driver today. And in the yeshiva, so usually I get to sit in a quiet office. Now I've got to sit in what they also have as the Beit Medrash. So So there's a little bit of noise, but I think right now there was a break in their schedule over here, so it hopefully will be a little bit easier. All right. So either way, uh, Yaakov is heading out. You can say he's a victim of fate, a victim of circumstance, a victim of negative events. Right? He's running. He's running for his life from Esav. Right? His brother who wants him dead. It's an unfortunate thing. Right? Fortunate family dynamic. Trouble in paradise. Right? One brother wants the other brother dead. And the other brother has to run for his life away from the homestead out to a very, very bad place, to the Charon Avshal. And one could assume, okay, I'm going about to have a,
I first started going out.
okay. So back to what we were saying. So Yaakov is forced to flee from a brother who wants him dead and heading into a very bad place. And so we are feeling bad for Yaakov right now, right? And this is unfortunate. And to a certain degree, you know who else is feeling bad for Yaakov? Yaakov is feeling bad for Yaakov. Yaakov is feeling bad for himself. But then we know he comes on his way out. He has his famous dream, right? He has his famous dream. And what is the dream? He sees a ladder, right? Its feet are firmly fixed on earth, and its head reaches the sky. And behold, the messengers of God, right? They're going down and they're going up. And then God talks to him. Right? God tells him, I'm with you, and I will protect you everywhere you go. Now, here's the thing. We all know the ladder. We've all got that image. What exactly is it? Why is this the backdrop of God's message? Right? He goes down.
The angels to ascend and descend.
Right? Say again?
Descend.
The angels that are ascending and descending. What is that? What is that imagery? What is the message in that to Yaakov? What is God telling him?
There'll be ups and downs.
You're actually you're saying something good, but it's actually even better than just simply that kind of passive truism about the world. God is giving him a very direct message. Yaakov, up until that point, was living his life in a way where he was trying to climb to ever greater heights, right? What was Yaakov up until that point? The Torah tells us he was Yoshev Ohalim, right? Yaakov dwelled in the tents, right? Esav was a man of the field, Ish Tzayid, Ish Sadeh, right? Yudea Tzayid, Ish Sadeh, person who was a hunter, a man of the field. Yaakov Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim. Yaakov was a more pure and simple person, would sit in the tents.
He was a yeshiva bacher.
He was a yeshiva bacher, exactly right. In the yeshiva bacher, you try to grow and advance in your spirituality, your Torah knowledge, and in the refinement of your soul. And here is Yaakov. He is being sent out from the yeshiva and he has to go into the dark, corrupt, horrible world. This is a significant crimp in his stride, right? This is an obstacle to his momentum. This is a very lamentable development, or not.
And not only that, he was broke.
Right? He was broke. Well, and that is being like a good yeshiva bacher, right? Yeshiva bacher are at their best when they're broke. Now, I remember my aunt. Once I was heading out to going back to the yeshiva, my aunt gives me a couple of bucks. I'm like, oh, really? Don't give. I'm playing like, oh, give the money to tzedakah. And she looked at me and said, listen here, sonny boy, feeding starving yeshiva bachram is exactly the kind of tzedakah that I want to give right now. Okay, so I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna again just put everybody on mute so that we're not getting that feedback. So, but Yaakov is looking at this journey that he's about to go on with a lot of anxiety, a lot of nervousness, but more even than his concern as to his physical well-being. He's concerned about his spiritual well-being. He was in an ideal spiritual situation when he was in the tent studying Torah. He was basking within this cocoon of holiness. And he wasn't sitting around doing nothing, but what he was doing was advancing spiritually. He was working hard, but working hard on his soul rather than working out on his body. He was a spiritual weightlifter, right? And so, and now he has to leave the yeshiva and go out into the dark, cruel world. So first of all, God is showing him with the angels something important. You got angels protecting you. You're not going alone into the dark cruel world. You're gonna be, I am with you, right? The Malachei Hasharet, right? The same ones we meet on, Shabbat, right? Ba'achem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, right? The angels of peace. Malachei Hasharet means the ministering angels, like Sherut, right? So the angels, Yaakov is getting angels. Now, here's the thing. Then you come to notice something strange about the trajectory of these angels. If you were an angel, if you're picturing angels on a ladder that are connecting heaven and earth, what is the trajectory of those angels?
You would think they would come down and then go up, but that's not what the verse says.
Right. The trajectory is puzzling. The trajectory has them going up and then coming down. Like Olim v'yordim. That's what the Torah says. And this is all very specific. So the commentators explain that there is a changing of the guard going on here. Yaakov's big concern was that leaving Israel means he's losing his divine protection. He is going out of the cocoon and he's going out into the world alone. And God is showing him that just as the angels that escorted him, the divine protection that existed in the land of Canaan, now that he is leaving, they are going back up to heaven, but new angels are coming back down. New angels, a handoff, a changing of the guard. Yaakov, you are not going alone. the angels of Israel are in fact going to stop at the borders of Israel, but brand new angels are coming down, and those new angels will take you as you go into the world. Shabbat, we welcome the angels of Shabbat, right? Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharet, right? And then, anybody know there's a tradition, a song that we sing Motzei Shabbat? And the words are Al Tira Avdi. Anybody know? Al Tira Avdi Yaakov. Do not fear my servant Jacob. Why would we sing that song, Motzei Shabbat? Because in a certain sense, we are experiencing when we leave the cocoon of Shabbat and head into the work week, that moment that Yaakov is feeling right now. He's leaving the cocoon, that special setting of pure holiness, and he's heading out into the world. And we are paraphrasing what God says to Yaakov here. We say this to ourselves on the Motzei Shabbat. Al tira avdi Yaakov. Do not fear my servant Yaakov. Ki itcha ani, I am with you. And in that is exactly why Yaakov, more than any of the other patriarchs and matriarchs, is the one whose life is the strongest message to us. We are not living Abraham's life. We are not living Yitzchak's life. Whose life do we primarily live?
You're saying Yaakov.
We live Yaakov's life, where we head out into the world, and we have to engage the corruption and the bad actors like Lavan, etc., etc. We're going to have to make our way in this world. And not because we're victims of circumstance. Not because we're victims of circumstance. Not because God is either punishing us, or he doesn't care about us, or his life is difficult and that's just the way it is. But as Stuart said, life has its ups and downs. Or the way that we say it in Yiddishkeit, you need to have your downs in order to have your ups. Or your downs are your ups. God says, I created you for a role. You play a specific purpose. And it's not in the place that's already pristine, where the entire, in a sense, agenda of the day is for you just to maintain your pristineness and see if you can add a little bit to it. You are my messengers. Your place, your theater of operations is not in the land of Canaan. It's in Haran. You are not there as a victim of circumstance. You're there as a person on a mission. Yaakov, your place is not in the tent. Your place is not in the tent. Your place is in Haran. That's your theater of operations. But I can't. I'm not well suited. I'm afraid of the corruption. God says, I'm not sending you alone. I'm not sending you alone. Al tira avdi Yaakov. Do not be afraid, Yaakov, as you go out into the world. Not because the world is not a bad place. It is a bad place. If it wasn't a bad place, I wouldn't need to send you in it to make it a better place. You're going to need to go into the world, and the world's going to have lavans. And the world is going to be full of charon afshal makom. And you're going to have a role to play. You're going to have to be Yaakov. Yaakov is made up of two words, Yud Akev. Yud is the letter that represents God, right? Akev is the heel. You're going to need to connect. You're the one who's going to bring God all the way, and the revelation of God and the awareness of God down into the heel of the world. This is what I'm going to count on. This is why you are here. I have angels. I need people. Yaakov's life trajectory is our life trajectory, because the role of us is not to be angels. The role of us is to be emissaries. Yaakov is, in a sense, the first shaliach.
Rabbi, would you say he did his mission well? Knowing the whole story.
Very well.
Very well.
Very, very, very well. Very
Why?
successful. Because he went down to Lavan,
Right.
to Haran, and he managed to bring and to elevate from there the entire Jewish people. Do you realize that the birth of the Jewish people is in Haran? 11 out of the 12 tribes are born in Haran.
Sure, but that's not mission fulfillment. That's having children, which is a mission fulfillment, of course. But
For in his stage of the game, that is mission fulfillment.
all right.
We're going to talk more about, because we're still at the outset of the mission. We're not
Sure,
yet at the
sure.
end of it. But when he's going to be coming back, on the way back, right? Next week's Torah portion, he's going to send. He hears Esav is coming to, he's soon going to have a showdown with Esav, right?
Right.
What does he send the message with Esav as to kind of the report of his life? Im Lavan Garti, right? He says, Im Lavan Garti. Garti is the same letters as the word Taryag.
Taryag HaMitzvot.
Im Lavan Garti v'Taryag Mitzvot Shamarti.
Very nice.
That is success. That's 100% success. I was able to go down to Haran and turn Haran, and to achieve in Haran that which I was doing in the tent. I was able to leave the kollel and turn Haran into my kollel. Right?
That's a fantastic answer. Thank
Yaakov looked at not only that, he brought back an entire nation of followers. In a way, by the way, that was more powerful than Abraham's nation of followers. Because Abraham's nation of followers were affected on a very superficial level. And the proof is, as we said, that while he created many monotheists, he only created one Jew.
Right.
Yaakov is coming back with an entire nation.
Right.
And where did he create this nation? In Haran. He created this nation in Haran, despite Lava. He didn't have to put his plans on hold until he finally got back from the detour in his life called Haran. His life fulfillment was in Haran. That's where he had his his rendezvous with destiny. And this is the thing, to frame it a little bit differently. Are you at your Jewish best on Shabbat or during the week? You would say, what do you mean? Of course I'm at my Jewish best on Shabbat. Right? That's when I feel most like a Jew, right? That's when I'm doing a lot of the davening and a lot of the learning and a lot of the mitzvahs, et cetera, and I'm spending time in the show, et cetera, et cetera. And this week's parsha throws before us the challenge: if you are Bnei Israel, then you need to follow the trajectory. Yaakov was at his most Jewish, as it were, in Haran. He managed in Haran to come into his own, to give birth and raise 11 of the 12 tribes. And we might as well say 12, because even Binyamin was not born back in the Holy Land. It was born on the way home. Now, yes, it happens to be that Binyamin, they had already crossed the borders, because of the proof of it is because Yaakov buried Rachel in Beit Lechem, right, where she passed away from childbirth with Binyamin. But he hadn't yet settled back in the city, in the town that for him was his Israel base of operations, i.e. Beersheba, eventually Hebron. It was on the road. The plane hadn't touched down yet at the Dorian airport, right? Even though it had crossed into the airspace. So all 12 of the tribes are born in the diaspora. The majority of the Jewish experience has been in the diaspora. Which makes an interesting point. Are we here by accident or are we here on purpose? 6 days of the week are not Shabbat. 1 day of the week is Shabbat. So how do we reconcile this? Because at the same time, God tells, if in fact Yaakov's great purpose is to be out there in the world, to bring God's message into the world, that's where he's meant to be, then why is both in his request and in God's assurance, once we see that Yaakov's got this, right? He has the dream. He has the dream, and he is being told, Yaakov, don't see this as heading out of the frying pan into the fire, or rather heading out of the beautiful, wonderful, calm, peaceful, safe place into the fire. No, this is you heading out to your destiny. This is you heading to your mission, and I'm going to be there and protect you. So if that's the case, then why does he request and God affirm, V'shavti b'shalom al beit avi? I should, and may it be a will that I return in peace. And God says that that I and I will return you, God tells him. So which one is it? Where's his place? Where's Yaakov's place? In the diaspora or in the Holy Lands?
Yes.
In Haran or
Yes.
back to Beit Avi? Is a Jew most comfortable, or is a Jew's place in the mundane or on Shabbat? And as Jerry gave the answer, sounds like she's taken a class or two with me.
I love it, Jerry.
The answer is yes. This is the duality that defines the Jewish person. You can't go out into the world if you don't have that firm home base in the Holy Land, and you go out to the world with the goal of refining the whole world till it too can become the Holy Land. The goal is not the diaspora. The goal, that is the theater of operations. The goal, however, is to turn the diaspora into the Holy Land. The goal is to take the mundane and make it holy, not to reside in that which is already holy. God says, I have enough angels in heaven that are basking in the ready-made holiness. I need the pioneers. I need the ones who will go out. But their eye is on the prize. What is the prize? The prize is not to settle for what they have here in the diaspora. That prize is we shall return all this. V'shafti b'shalom. What does the word b'shalom mean?
Complete.
Completeness. Very good. It does not just mean peace, right? It does not just mean menucha, right? Which means the lack of any disturbing or distracting matters. Rather, shalom is from the word shalem, which means whole, complete. To return complete. Before I left, I'm not complete. Why? Because I'm cultivating my soul and my holy side, but I'm not cultivating and refining my body, my corporeality, my material side and the material side of the world. I'm not complete. And if I get lost out there, I'm definitely not complete. What does complete look like? Complete looks like when I take that mundane and I turn that into holy. This is what it is to be a Yid. The ultimate Jewish experience is very different than most other ultimate religious experiences. It could be Buddhism, it could be Christianity, Islam, etc., etc. There's a certain amount of asceticism built into all of those religions, right? Vow of celibacy, vow of silence, separation, right? Separating from the world. In other words, the way Yaakov was living in the tent. And then God says, Yaakov, leave the tent. Go to Haran. Jewish experiences are not exclusively spiritual. They are very material. The ultimate Jewish experience is to light wax candles, right? To wrap leather tefillin, to eat a delicious meal of gefilte fish and challah. Very material.
Rabbi, do you have the time to tell the story, the Yiddish story about the kid who decides he's going to go to yeshiva in the next town, and he hears about a wonderful, wonderful rabbi who can teach him everything, and then you know that story. And the rabbi has a place to live, and then he comes back later and says, "Do you have anything to eat?" And then he comes back later and he says, I'm waiting to hear all the secrets of Judaism. And he goes, "Do you have a wife?" And he gets him a wife, and then like every year he comes back, and finally comes back with his children and his grandchildren and says, "Rabbi, I've been waiting to hear the secret." And he goes, "What's that?"
You're living it, right?
That's it.
There's another story similar. There was a great mashpia. Mashpia means like the spiritual counselor. In a Chabad yeshiva, there is not just the lecturers, right? The rebbes who are teaching the class, and the Rosh Yeshiva, who is the head of the yeshiva. There's also a position of great importance called the mashpia, which is the spiritual counselor. Usually the one who gives the class on Hasidus, and also is the one who mentors the students as they're trying to navigate their spiritual direction. And many of these, some of the most iconic names among the Hasidim were those who held this position. Rabbi Mendel Furtefas, Rabbi Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, and this one was Rav Yecheskel Fagin, who was affectionately known as Rav Chatzhe. Chatzhe Fagin. He was in the days of the sixth Chabad Rebbe. We're talking about during communist Russia. Rav Chatzhe Fagin, you can imagine that times were incredibly difficult, very difficult physically. So all the Bachrim are sitting there in the Beit Medrash and they're davening, and they're involved in their davening. They're lost in their davening. Close their eyes. And Rav Chatzhe Fagin, they're holding basically the Shema Yisrael. You know, as a part of the davening, you're really not allowed to interrupt or to disturb the davening. the earlier parts of the davening, if you have to say something or you have to answer, you're allowed to. At that point, you don't interrupt, or you try, in fact, not to even do You try to stay focused. Deeper into the davening. By the way, the davening is called the ladder of
Yaakov.
Yaakov, right? The ladder of Yaakov. And so so they're all davening. They're deep into the davening. They're climbing to the heights of their davening. And Rav Chacha Fagin all of a sudden starts getting one of the Bachram's attention. He says, "No." Now this is like jarring, right in the middle of the davening. Chacha Fagin is interrupting, and he's trying to get one of the Bachram. This clearly is going to be some sort of emergency. So the Bachar looks up. This is right by the Shema Yisrael.
Aye.
And Rav Chacha Fagin turns to him, because this Bachar was from a house that had a little bit more means. They were a little bit more wealthy. And Rav Chacha Fagin points. He says he draws the Bachar's attention to another Bachar who was sitting further down the bench, who had torn shoes. Whose shoes were falling apart. Now in Russia, shoes were incredibly expensive and incredibly necessary. You had one pair, and I mean, in the cold and the mud and the snow, you needed a good, strong pair of shoes, but they were incredibly expensive. So there's one yeshiva bachar who came from a very poor household whose shoes were falling apart on his feet, and had to make do. So Rav Chacha Fagin had noticed them and was getting this other bachar's attention that he too should notice, and in a sense, as a nemdasunter, take up the cause
Right.
of getting this bachar new shoes. So the bachar looks and he sees that Rav Chacha Fagin is done. Says, but it's middle davening. It's a middle davening. So the bachar says, kind of gives a nod, and then gets back in his davening. They're gonna brush it. We'll worry about this afterwards. Right? No davening. And Rav Chacha Fagin says, no. And the bachar looks and says, "Oh, no, fine, but the davening, davening." So Rav Chacha says, "No." So the bachar says, "Shema Yisrael." So Rav Chacha Fagin says, Rav Chacha Fagin interrupts his davening and says, "Was Shema Yisrael? The bachar daf shich. Das is Shema Yisrael." He's saying, what Shema Yisrael? Where is Shema Yisrael? This bachar needs a pair of shoes. He needs a pair of shoes. That's Shema Yisrael. He's not saying, Rav Chacha Fagin is saying that Shema Yisrael is not Shema Yisrael and it's only about a pair of shoes. We're not reducing Judaism to Tikkun Olam.
Right.
That's not what we're saying here.
Right.
But what we are saying here is that God deliberately put us into a physical and a material world, with the goal of not going native, as the expression is, but rather to take that physical world and elevate it, to refine it, to not negate the body. Both of these are the kingdom of God. Heaven is not, the kingdom of God is not heaven. Kingdom of God is the entirety of existence. Heaven is already there. It's in full recognition of God's sovereignty. Earth needs help. The world, the physical, the material needs help. And we are the ones that our souls, God sends out of heaven with the express purpose of spending a certain amount of time on this world. And what are the first words of Yaakov's shlichus? Yaakov was sent out on shlichut, right? It's like, he showed up at Chabad Central, and they're like, "Okay, your place is Haran. Here's your thing. Take your wife, head on out," right? And says, "I don't have a wife." "Fine, you'll find one over there. But head on out," right?
He had to get the hechsher from Rabbi Kaplan.
Right, right. And so sort of he heads out.
Whole area, okay.
He comes to
Oh,
Haran and he bumps into his first carbonos, as they say, right? His first victims, right? Who are the first people he bumps into Haran? A whole
Shepherds.
bunch of shepherds around the watering hole,
Mm.
right? And what is his first kind of message to them? So what do
He's
you
already
see?
saying, like you guys are just hanging around. There's work to do. How come you're not doing it?
Yes. Why is it any of his business? Is he really? Is he on the? Is he in the Chamber of Commerce? Why is he bothered by this?
Because he's a nudnik.
As I said, he's a good shliach, right? He makes it his business to mind everybody else's business,
He's a
right?
yenta.
But what he's saying, and the entire message is everything is created for a purpose and a reason. How are you wasting time? Hein od hayom gadol. He says, there's many hours left in the day. Time on this world, everything has purpose. Everything should be of substance. You're not an aberration. God doesn't create uh, um, um, what's a great expression I heard somebody say. I'm blanking on the particular word, but God doesn't create extras. Every person, wherever they are, has an express potential to achieve something. You're blowing time here. He's saying this is against, this is antithetical. Maybe you'll still get paid. These are because he's turning to these guys. They're right. They're just shepherds. They're day laborers, right? They're going to get paid anyways. They take the sheep, the feed. They're not in any rush to get back. And he says an honest day's work, not simply about your salary, but it's about your time has to be precious and has to be valuable. You have to be in a productive mindset. Wherever you are, circumstance you're in, there's something that you can do. There's something that you can achieve. You are not a victim of circumstance. You're a person on a mission. And so take up the cause. Get busy. Do something. And this is Yaakov's, in a sense, example to all of us. Oftentimes we find ourselves in a place, and I'll share a quick story, and then we'll have to go, that a couple of friends of mine were learning in the yeshiva in New York, and were called by Chabad Shliach in Atlanta, Georgia, to come down and do like a Shabbaton, to be like young scholars and residents, yeshiva bachrim, to come do a shlichus down in Atlanta, Georgia. So, like yeshiva bachrim, they made two decisions. Number one, we're not flying, we're driving because it's cheaper and we can do it. New York to Atlanta. And so they set up. Second decision they make is that we're yeshiva bachrim, so we don't have to leave and factor in all potential issues or whatever it is and have a foolproof plan. We'll leave Friday morning and we'll wing it, right? We'll make it by the skin of our teeth down because before Shabbos, because we can count on that happening, right? Because nothing goes wrong. And then they made a third decision, which was that the empty, the gas indicator that said empty, if that's not necessarily accurate, And that's when all three of these things came back to bite them in the rear end. And late on a Friday afternoon,
Of course.
on the side of the road of some highway out in middle of nowhere, Georgia. By the time they figure out gas cans, whatever is walking to the nearest gas station, come back, they realize there's no way they're making it to Atlanta. At best, what they're going to do is get this car off the highway, fill up, put in the gas, get it off the highway, get to the nearest town where they can find a bed, whatever it is, in a motel, and that's where Shabbos is going to happen. And the town that they came to was, and I still remember the name of the town, Alamuchi. Alamuchi. And I tell you, the name sounds exactly like the kind of place it was. Out in middle of nowhere, population 73. The boondocks of the boondocks. They're stuck there for Shabbos. So the first beginning part of it, it's exciting. We're on an adventure. Very quickly that wears off, and they start to feel kind of terrible. First of all, they let down the Chabad Shliach was counting on them being there. Second of all, now it's Shabbos, and they're in the middle of nowhere. There's no Jews. There's nothing. So what are they there for? They screwed up, and the consequence of their mess up is they're out in the middle of nowhere and completely deviation from whatever the plan was. And so this is their attitude. They daven. They're kind of Shabbos morning. They wake up. They're in a funk. They brought challahs and wine with that, whatever it is. So they have something but they're in a funk. But look, with Shabbos, they finished the davening. It's time to get it. They have a lot of wine. Nothing else to do with their time. So what did the Chassidim do when you have a lot of wine and not much else to do with your time? You fabrang. So they fabrang, and they start to work on each other, and they say, everything is behashkacha pratis. Everything is divine providence. Clearly, we were meant to be here in Alamuchi, Georgia. And so there's something and there's something is supposed to happen here in Alamuchi. And so what they do is they decide, clearly there's a soul here somewhere that has been waiting since the moment of creation for us to find them. And whatever. So they kind of divide up like this. Like, okay, you're going to go to the town center. You're going to go here. You're going to knock on the doors. We're going to find. Okay. And the last group says, there's not much left of the town to divide up. So the last pair, you're going to go down to the highway, right? And so this is what they're doing. And so they'll go, ones that go to the town square, don't find any Jews. Ones that go knocking door to door, they don't find any Jews. Ones that go down to the highway, the cars, they're sitting there, by the exit, whatever it is, the car's flying by. Like, what are we doing? Call a spade a spade. It is what it is. We'll have to wait till Motzei Shabbos, and we'll kind of cut our losses, and we'll either go down to the Shliach for a Malava Malka event or something, or we'll head back up to New York. So they start to back. All of a sudden, car pulls up. An old woman sticks her head out the window and says, "Was tut Yidin in Alamuchi?" She says, "What are Jews doing in Alamuchi?" She, children of the Holocaust survivor, herself she's a Holocaust survivor, but her parents came through, took her relatively young child at the time, moved to the furthest place away from anything Jewish, because if it ever would come back, they would look in the big cities first.
Oh, yeah.
And she, for her entire life, her Judaism was her parents only. And when her parents died, it was over. And she hasn't had, at that point, she was too old to move to a city, whatever it is. She saw that the world, thank God, Jews are flourishing, Judaism is flourishing. But at this point, she was too old to make any changes, so no Yiddishkeit in her life. And she's an older woman, and she's kind of making her peace with the fact that this is her life. Her life is a lost Jew in Alamuchi.
Ah,
And then she's driving her car, and there are two Hasidim standing at the side of the road looking very lost.
it's very nice.
She says, "Was tun?" Because she still speaks a little Yiddish from her parents. "Was tun Yidden in Alamuchi?" To which they, of course, responded, "To find you."
Oh.
So dear
Oh.
Gefinnen. She
That's
kept up a
sweet.
relationship with them. They brought her to New York. She didn't have any family, didn't want to get married. They didn't bring her to move to New York, but they brought her to New York. So she went Shabbos, had Shabbos meals with them. This is, you think you end up in Haran by accident? You end up in Haran on purpose. And I will share a story that happened with me in the final few minutes. Just happened. Many of you know that A.B. Zaderman, a very, very dear member of our show, caught COVID and very quickly deteriorated, and what everybody thought, the family thought, was just a small hiccup. When it started to get very serious, he was in the ICU and in a coma. I flew down to spend the day with the family down in Florida because he was down in a hospital in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. In and out. Right at this very desk here in Baltimore is where I booked the ticket and with the plan to go. And I'm sitting at this desk with this computer, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay with them the whole day. And the next morning, by 5 in the morning, I would have to be heading to the airport to get my flight back. So I'm really only going to have a couple of hours. So I don't need a fancy hotel. I don't need anything. I don't want to be in a position with the family, so I'm not going to just sleep with them. I'll take a hotel room. So I went and I started doing, these searches for the cheapest hotel room possible. Found one. Looked at some of the pictures, whatever it is. I felt okay. It's nothing special. Definitely no frills, but a place to put my head down and close to the airport, which was important. I arrive at the hotel, and just to give you an indication of what kind of hotel it is, there's a cop in the parking lot. There's a cop sitting in the lobby, and there's another cop out in the kind of the courtyard area of this hotel, because without 3 cops on location, all hell would break loose in this hotel.
Oh, wonderful.
It's that kind of place. I am walking in, and there are Hispanics with gang tattoos and ladies of the night, and there's some significantly distinct odor going in the lobby of the hotel.
Right.
And I'm there in my jacket and hat.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what am I doing here?
Right.
What am I doing here? I'm like, should I just go turn around, go find a different hotel? Like, it's late. You know what? let me just take it. I'll go into my room. I will lock and chain the door. By the way, they said your room's on the second floor. They told me, but you're gonna have to go and take the elevator to the third floor and then walk down the stairs to the second, because for whatever reason the elevator's malfunctioning. It doesn't stop at the second floor. Like, that's great. I want to get into that elevator. But either way, true as I say this story, it's exactly what happens. I decided, okay, I'm gonna just do it. I'm there. I have the hotel room. I'm not gonna start at this hour in the night searching around for a hotel. So I get the key card, and then I'm walking from the lobby back out to where the car is to get the luggage. And I'm passing by, and kind of working my way through big, African Americans and Hispanic with the tattoos and white, what you call it, white trash, whatever it is. And I say this because one of the white trash turns to me and says, "Shalom Aleichem."
Oh,
Just like that.
oh my God.
Young guy, dreadlocks, ponytail, cool shades, hat backwards. Shalom Aleichem. I turn around and say, Aleichem Shalom. And he introduces himself as Shimmy N. I'm not going to say his last name.
Right, right.
Shimmy N. from Lakewood. Shimmy in from Lakewood. And clearly, he's on a journey to find himself. Let's put it that way. Shimmy in from Lakewood. So now I said, in my mind, now I know I got put here.
Oh. Oh.
So I say, Shimmy, I'm here because there is somebody in the community, in my community, who is very ill. He's in the hospital fighting for his life. He needs a lot of mitzvahs. Maybe we learn something together. It's too late to put on tefillin. It's 11:30 at night.
Right.
Maybe we learn something together in his merit.
Wow.
So he looks at me and he says, night Seder?
Oh,
In the yeshiva, this is a guy who's got all the yeshiva lingo. Night Seder? I said, yep, night Seder. He said, all right. He goes, he said, let me go get my kippah from the car.
Oh my gosh.
He goes and gets his kippah. And we learn Tanya right there in the lobby of this hotel, me and this special neshama. I want to show you, I still keep in touch with him.
Jimmy. Ay. Oh my gosh.
So wherever you are, you're there for a reason. And you're there not to exist in that space, you're there to refine that space. Be a Yaakov. Take the Yud and bring it into the Akev. Know that Haran is not an aberration. It's not a detour. It's not where you a victim of circumstance. It's where you need to be, where they need you to be. Find your purpose. Find the way that you can refine the space in which you exist, and bring God's presence wherever it is that you might end up. All right, everybody.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yashika.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi. There were four of us to tell him we were four.
There are four of us here, Rabbi. This is
All right.
California crew.
There you go.
Together.
Jerry, I'm still going to charge for each one of you. You can't.
Did you get to meet Selma? Selma, say hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi, and everybody else.
Listen,
Shalom l'kulam.
Hi.
And of course,
Here's
Lois.
Lois. Hello. Shalom. Shalom.
you guys are all
By
in
the
one
way-
place. Too much star power in one location.
By the way, I was telling somebody about a JLI course I was taking, about the course you're teaching, and they said, how's it going? I said, well, I'm more confused than when I started.
Well, when it comes to God, that's a very good thing. You should never feel like
Okay.
you got God in your back
But you
pocket.
never feel like, yeah.
No, but I want to give my Jerry some props. It's thanks to her that I got involved with your Torah class. And now we have Gail and Selma. And we just are so grateful to you and Jerry.
All right.
Thank
Well, I
you.
appreciate
All right.
it very much.
All right.
Appreciate it very, very much.
Now we're
Good
going
Shabbos, everyone.
Bye.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.